Thanks for showing us how to make the perfect Christmas turkey.
Oh, you're most welcome. Lucky me to have 3 lovely ladies to assist in cooking in the kitchen. So, shall we begin?
Yes.
Alright, it's actually quite simple. We're going to start with Rachel perhaps preparing the brine, which is putting 200 grams of salt into 5 liters of water.
Okay.
So pop that in.
So you just pour it in.
Pour it in, easy peasy. There we go. And then with this whisk, give it a good whisk.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go.
Mr. Turkey is
All right.
ready to go in.
Mr. Turkey, basically one little trick I have is that the breast goes in first into the water. Don't ask me why.
And what's the importance of brining the turkey?
Keeps the flesh tender because turkey is a very white meat and especially the breast can be very dry. So if you don't brine it, the meat can be quite tough.
Yeah.
Even with the clutch of gravy.
Does it make it tastier as
Well, that's where the salt water comes into play. It's supposed to infuse the flavor into the thickest part of the meat of the bird. Which is,
Almost.
yeah, absolutely. And the theory is quite simple. Put it in, leave it overnight. That's my best suggestion. So anything between 8 to 12 hours. Preferably, it doesn't need to go into the fridge, but preferably in a cooler area. So put this aside.
Can you take us through what goes into a good stuffing?
Absolutely. Here we have a little bit of butter. Alright. So we'll start by melting the butter. I have a habit of burning my butter, so perhaps I shouldn't start with such a high speed. And essentially you put the onions in to kind of just saute to brown it lightly. And the color you want is actually when it turns translucent. That's when you kind of know.
Just sweating it.
Yeah, it's ready to go. So we'll just let it to simmer in here a little bit. There you go. So maybe about 4 or 5 stalks of sage leaves. That's just chopped up loosely.
Oh, that smells really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably not like a rosemary where the flavors are too strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's overpowering.
There we go. 100 grams of chicken sausage meat.
Does it be sausage or can it be like other kinds of meat? Forms of meat?
I think sausage meat tends to have a nicer texture to it, whereas if you use minced meat, it generally tends to be a little bit too lean. So sausage has
too
got
mealy.
that right mix of fat and cartridge, and we don't
A
ask
bit of
what else
bounce.
is in there. Yeah, a little bit of
Got a
bounce.
bit of bounce, the unknown
Precisely.
meat.
All right, we'll just let that simmer easily while we prepare the dry ingredients before we mix it all
Okay,
up,
let's
shall we?
slide over
So
here,
let's slide
ladies.
over there. Easy. So here we have 400 grams of breadcrumb. I think about 200 grams of chopped chestnut, a handful of cranberries. Again, you like. So we put that in. Faye, I think we should start getting you to do some work.
Sure,
Alright,
sure.
so
Hey,
how
what do I
about
look
we-
like?
we-
Idle?
You're looking as if you're relaxing now. We need to get Faye a fork. Should we? Or what were you?
It's a dangerous thing to give me because people have been forked by me before.
Yeah, let's not have that today, but perhaps we could get Faye a fork so she can crack up some eggs.
Ooh, I made a mess already.
Can't take you anywhere
I
really.
know, right? This is the first time I've been let up for 2 months. And look what happened.
Alright, before you put that in, 100 mils of milk, right in, 50 mils of chicken stock, and your eggs go in right there.
There you go.
Now, we like to put a little bit of parsley in the stuffing purely for, I don't think this contributes much in flavor or texture, but you know, for color, at the end of the day, that kind of plays a big part into what you put in your mouth, really. The early on cooked sausage meat with the onions, we basically mix it through.
That smells good.
Just basically give it a toss through. Now, next part. A lot of recipe books will tell you teaspoons. I have no idea how to salt. So I use a pinch of fingers. After cooking a while, you kind of get the idea of how much salt you should put in what dish. In this case, if you need a gauge, it really should be no more than 2 tablespoons. Really. But as you can see, I've probably done about 4 or 5 pinches.
Oh,
So, we've got our lovely bird that's sitting right there. Next, I'd like to pat dry it. Salt and pepper really is all that's required for the marinade, I reckon. So let's just ensure you put lots of salt in the cavity. That's actually one area that people generally tend to neglect. Okay, there we go. Salt and pepper, easy peasy.
Or do you want me to? Will you hold the cavity?
Maybe just hold
I'll
the
bowl.
bowl.
I'll
So
hold
there
that.
we go. I'll keep your fingers nice and clean. And I may need Rachel for you to get your hands dirty to hold the bird, alright? So
Okay,
don't
try
get
me.
squirmish,
Yeah,
just
okay.
hold the base of the legs
Okay.
if you can. There we go.
Oh.
Here we go. Now, my mother would probably be very upset that I'm using toothpicks because she would probably put a thread in there, sew it up nicely like a surgeon. My little trick is to loosen the skin as much as possible from within the meat.
Deglove it without removing it.
Oh, super good.
Lovely. There you go. A low-calorie Christmas dinner.
Thank you. Okay, kind of get the idea.
Perfect. Because
Yeah.
that
That would-
breast is the bit where you really need it to be moist.
Right.
So the butter really will just do that trick.
Yeah.
Give it the extra moisturizing boost.
To cover the bread. In this case, we want to. Now, with that wrapped up, we basically pop it into the oven at 200 degrees for 2 hours.
Right.
So, ladies, with the bird in the oven, we now have 2 hours to kill. I think over a glass of wine. We shall wait patiently.
For 2 hours? I
For
think
2
for like
hours.
a couple of bottles.
So now that the bird is ready, we'll pop it out. And what's happened is that 1.5 hours into roasting, you basically take out the aluminium foil and flip the bird upside down. That will give an even coat of roasting on the other side. And so here we have our roast turkey with Christmas stuff that goes to the lamb.
So you spent the whole day preparing for Christmas dinner?
I have to admit, the Christmas dinner is actually more my mother's thing. So
Right.
we will help. Her favorite idea is basically everybody should be in the house. They don't have to be in the kitchen, but she just wants everybody to be in the house as long as they linger around, whether they're watching TV or not. When in the house, she's happy, and basically everybody chips in a little bit to help out. And the kitchen has always been kind of the center of our home anyway.
Yeah,
So.
yeah.
So everybody's sitting around the counter chatting, and then while they're chatting, he'll peel some carrots or something. So
Family time.
it's a family
Yeah.
family effort.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
any tips on carving a turkey?
Oh, the many ways. I mean, it's quite interesting. I mean, traditionally we start from the breast and we follow the grain rather than the grain against the grain to avoid the coarseness of the meat. However, recently I had an uncle who came to the house for Christmas, and he volunteered to carve the turkey, and we turned around and was not paying attention. But he had a very interesting way. He basically carved it up like how he was doing chicken rice. So he takes out the whole breast by its whole lobe, and then basically chops it up. And it actually works quite well as well. So now we actually do both. Because
Okay.
normally we roast 2 turkeys. So for those people who want the more traditional thin slice, we'll carve it.
Yeah.
And then his way basically is exactly like deboning the turkey for chicken rice, and it's worked quite well.
Interesting. Thanks, Ben, for having us over and for showing us how to prepare a Christmas turkey.
Oh, you're most welcome. Hope you guys picked up a lesson or two.
Yes, we did.
Shall we dig in?
Yes.
Enjoy.